Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader, the Infinite Museion DLC version 1.6 and beyond guide. In this case, we're gonna cover Idira, Companion Idira, full build for unfair difficulty. If it works on unfair, it works on all other difficulties as well. Let's not waste time and let's go. We start off from Itemization on Idira. One staff should be a Vision of Death staff. The other staff should always be Lightning Arc. AoE, best AoE Psyker damage, especially on Idira. Okay, so the higher the level of the staff, the better. Power level of the staff. You change them as you go along the way until you have Staff of Shock and Awe. And this is the one you're gonna use most often if you play with Idira in your team. What stats do we want on Idira? We want dodge, or should I say we want agility, and we want willpower, and that's about it. Basically, perception is there for awareness, of course. Knowing what we want, let's see the other gear. For the helmet, Psy rating is extremely important on Idira, and this one sets you Mask from the second DLC, I think it was. It offers a very good stats for Idira. For the armor, any light armor with the highest dodge is the way to go until you have Panoply of the Assassin for Idira. What is also valid on Idira? You can go with a Fencing Body Glove. You can go with a Chaos Light Enforcer Carapace, cause she profits out of toughness as well. She's gonna be a bit tankier, yeah, and you still keep the dodge. You can go with Enforcer Light Carapace because of agility that gives extra dodge. You can go with Armored Body Glove again. Okay, this is Panoply of the Assassin is basically a more powerful version of the Armored Body Glove. You can go with Phantom Killer Body Glove. It really doesn't matter as long as it's light and it offers huge amount of dodge to Idira. For the trinkets, Portable Cogitator for Logic, although you can easily switch this one for any trinket that's gonna give willpower, perception, Psy rating, any of that is valid. There's like 300 trinkets in a game, pick something for combat. For example, what you to have is an Ice Covered Aquila. Also, extremely good one to have for later on is a Mystic Ward, because you give deflection to allies according to your Psy rating. She has huge Psy rating, okay? So the entire team can benefit a lot out of the Mystic Ward, and so on and so forth. You get the point. We pick trinkets for Idira of Psy rating, benefit for the entire team, willpower, perhaps even perception. Those are the trinkets that we want. For the second trinket, we're gonna get Experimental Psy Amplifier. Again, as I said, Psy rating amplifier. And this one is extremely good on Crazy Idira, because she's completely unstable. And for the trinket, other third amulet necklace, we're gonna get the Certium necklace. Reason, it gives temporary wounds when you trigger Perils of the Warp. She triggers it non-freaking stop, okay? So she can be a bit tankier when she triggers Perils of the Warp, I guess. And for the gloves, we're gonna take Warp Conductor gloves, Psychic Phenomenon, Perils of the Warp again. This is where Idira thrives to create chaos on the battlefield. For the cape, it's a Shadow Guide cloak. She is not priority target, enemies ignore her. And for the boots, it's Psyker footwear, stacking dodge for each Psy power that you use on Idira, and she uses a lot of different Psy powers, which we're gonna cover later on. Now let's transfer to leveling. She's an operative that becomes an overseer and ends up as an exemplar. For the operative part, analyze enemies into awareness, next level expose weakness, dismantling attack ulti into a psychic barrage. Then we're gonna take willpower into thriving in peril. Everywhere is willpower, peril, warp, crazy stuff, as crazy as Idira is. On the next level, it's Mind Thief into willpower. Then it's Prescience into awareness. Then we're gonna take Advice and Guidance into the second sight. then is Dismantling Attack, ulti upgrade number 1 into Logic, Logic again into Perception, then we're gonna take Psyker Minoris into Tech use, then we're gonna use Foreboding into Nimble, after that we're taking Warp Minds into Perception, then it's Intelligence into Visions of Doom, and then is Dismantling ulti upgrade number 2. After we're done with the Operative, we go to the Overseer, we're gonna pick a Raven over here, Psy-Raven. And then we're taking Evil Eye into Castigating Echoes, into Overcharge ulti for the Raven, action point power spike, into Willpower, then we're gonna take Better to Die for the Emperor, into Willpower again, and then we're gonna use Stabilize for the Raven. After that we're taking Awareness into Psyker Majoris, then it's Perception into Weak Hearts, then we're gonna take Ruinous Flows talent into Perception, into Awareness, into ulti upgrade number 4 for the Raven, then we're gonna take the Fatebringer into Predicted Downfall, Intelligence into Logic, then we're gonna take Precognition into Psyker Terminus, then we're gonna take a Natural Luck, Intelligence, Logic, then we're taking Bound by Warp into It Will Not Die for some extra wounds, and ulti upgrade number 2 for the Raven, Psy-Raven. Once we're done with the Overseer, we go to the Exemplar, Combat Meditation into Weak Body, Weak Soul, then we're gonna take Awareness into the Warp Buffer, then we're gonna take Willpower into Power Conduit, then we're gonna take Prophetic Intervention into Awareness, then we're taking Malign Influence into Psyker Extremis. This should be the last Psyker upgrade, by the way, it unlocks the most powerful abilities. Then we're gonna take Willpower into Aftershock. After that we're taking Dominate into Perception. Then we're gonna take Arbor Hide into Stronger Together, into Logic, into Perfection Under Fire, and Action Point Power Spike Increase. Now we're gonna take Pain Channeling into Logic, then we're gonna take Obscured Threat into Medicae, then we're gonna take Mind Siege, Perception, Agility, and Medicae again. For the next talent, Tricky Defense into Edge of Fate, then we're gonna take Mental Breach into Medicae, into Flawless Plan, into Swift Movements. For the last ability we're gonna learn Psychic Assault, and we take Agility into Know It All, and Stabilizing Factor ends up in Action Point Power Spike Increase. We do not need a single augment on Idira, so do not use augments on Idira. She doesn't profit out of augments, and there are no good augments on Idira. How to play Idira? At the start of the game, early game, usually gonna analyze. You're gonna use the staff attack. I think it's Lightning Arc. Yeah, it's Lightning Arc. So you analyze, you use Expose Weakness or so on, and you shock enemies with Lightning Arc. That's like bread and butter, and it's valid all the way till the very end, late game. Yeah. And of course, do not forget to buff up allies, those that need dodge and parry. For example, you can buff Abelard with parry, you can buff Cassia with extra dodge, or you can even buff Idira with an extra dodge. It really doesn't matter. When you cannot reach enemies, and if there is a single target, instead of using Lightning Arc, you're gonna attack with a Psychic Shriek. And that's about it for the early game. Now, for the mid-game, when we get the Raven, you're gonna need to move the Raven everywhere with Relocate. Raven can traverse extremely far, and the very first move, always when you play with Idira, from mid-game and onwards, will be to move the Raven, and then use spells, abilities, and whatnot. First, move Raven inside enemies, because Raven will damage enemies around and debuff enemies as well and multiply some spells and whatnot. Raven is OP. Do not be afraid for Raven. If Raven falls, it fell. It's important what's Raven capable of doing in that one round. To devastate all enemies. So once we use Relocate, then we can use a Discharge. And then we can go with Lightning Arc from Idira. Also, before using Discharge, we can always trigger Evil Eye for some extra damage. If you don't want to move the Raven, and if you want to provide buffs to allies with Forewarning and with Prescience, then the combo for Idira would be Stabilize into this 2, and you buff up the entire team, and with remaining action points you can use the Psychic Shriek or Lightning Arc to shoot. once we get precognition, always use precognition whenever Idira starts the turn. That's for a mega late game, because she's gonna speed up her turn drastically. You will use prophetic intervention only if you are in extremely bad situation, not before that. So if someone is extremely low or you got 1 or 2 dead, then you're gonna use prophetic intervention. Dominate is very useful, but you gotta pick what you wanna do. Whether you're gonna cast Dominate, you're gonna send Raven, or you're gonna analyze, buff, use prescience, or deal damage with Raven. You don't have infinite amount of action points, so have that in mind as well. Squishes are good to dominate. You know, smaller enemies, minions or whatever, they're good to dominate, because enemies lose an entire round to kill them. And when do we use Psychic Assault? When there's bunch of enemies close by to Idira and you want multi-AoE damage. Just don't forget to send in the Raven as well, so Raven triggers additional effects on enemies around it. This is a buffer Idira. She provides a lot of buffs, but that's like 20% of the build. 80% of this build is damage dealing psychic abilities and creating chaos on a battlefield by summoning demons because of the perils of the war. Idira is completely unstable. To be honest, it's very easy to win fights with Idira, and it's even easier to lose fights with Idira in your team if she triggers something bad. That of course won't happen in the end game, late end game, when all companions are strong. She cannot mess up things like she can in Act 1. So my personal advice is avoid Idira in early game. That would be Act 1 and Act 2. You can start playing Idira again from Act 3 and beyond, because then it's gonna be easier to control the battlefield and the chaos that Idira leaves in her wake. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.